Hey everyone, it's Joanna here from Inspired by Stamping, and today I'm going to share with you how to color with zig pens to create this beautiful floral image with our fresh bouquet stamp set. And here's this card that we're going to be working on today, and I've also embossed on it and I've put some little sequences. You can also separate your floral bouquet and you can put them on the corners just like that too for the same effect. And you can see here that I'm sharing with you, I placed some iridescent medium over the top, and I'll be showing you how to do that too with those zig pens so you can create beautiful glitter cards too. So here's those zig pens. I've already done a tutorial on 101 zig pens, so if you'd like to check that out, I'll create a link at the bottom of this video. They're beautiful. They've got bright and vibrant colors and a beautiful tip at the end. And so we're just going to be working on the floral image today. I'm not going to be putting the card together because this video is almost 25 minutes long already. So I just really want to concentrate on the techniques that we're using. And I'm also using that gold sentiment here that I embossed at the end and beautiful sequences. So here's the card that we're going to be doing today. I'm using some Arches hot pressed watercolor paper. It is the best. I absolutely love it. And I've already embossed the image with some white embossing powder. If you have any questions or comments about how to emboss, please make sure you check out a few of my other videos. I have some in-depth on how to do that as well. So I'm grabbing a little ceramic plate here. I love this little ceramic plate. I take it with me wherever I go. It's my kind of my travel ceramic plate. And I've also got my little glass of water here. We're going to be using a number 6 brush here, and so this brush is absolutely beautiful. It's nice and big too for that first layer. So what we're going to do, instead of putting the ink directly on the paper, we're going to put it on the ceramic plate here, and we're just going to kind of put as much as we possibly can. I'm going a little quicker here, and I apologize for the speed, but if not, it would take about 40 minutes for my video, and YouTube doesn't allow me to have such big, huge videos like that. The key here for using these zig pens is to make sure that you don't apply it directly to the paper. If you do that first layer, those zig pens, that paper just absorbs those zig pens, and you're going to have such a hard time moving around that ink. So this is really a key step here to putting that first wash down. You're going to treat them like watercolors, so we want to make sure we put our lightest wash down first, and this just kind of, sets that tone for the rest of the flower. So just scribble a little bit of ink on a ceramic plate, or if you have a glass or anything else, to use, go for it. Anything works. Just make sure you can, swipe it up with your watercolor brush here. So just kind of going over really quickly. You don't have to worry about which way you're applying this first layer. It's really going to be covered up with multiple layers here. And you can see that it's really just starting to pop already with color. Now we really want to use some water too here because that just kind of makes it nice and light. This is my little swag, and I'm just going to clean off that ceramic plate and so we can switch colors. So here I'm using a really light pink, and again I'm getting some water on that brush first, and then I'm grabbing some of that zig marker ink there, and so we're just going to be again applying that first wash throughout. And when you do this, you don't have to worry about moving around that ink if you do go directly on there. Again, it is just so difficult to move around the ink if you put it directly on your watercolor paper. So it's really key here to make sure that you don't do that. You can, and different kind of techniques, but here you don't really want to see a really harsh line with floral images. So this is just really a key right here to making sure that your image is very, very soft and beautiful as well. So I'm just finishing up putting on this pink layer, and as you can see, I'm not really paying much attention to my direction of form here because it really doesn't matter, and you can go over that beautiful embossing too. It's lovely. So you can go and just hit the edges. That embossing kind of creates a beautiful edge for you, so you really don't have to worry about the bleed either, which is one of my favorite things about embossing. So I'm just hitting the leaves right now with a little bit of a green, and I'm just going over with the same technique as I've began with the first wash, and again just going ever so lightly in these smaller little areas here. And then I'm going to be using a blue-green for the rest of the leaves and the same kind of technique. Now I'm using a number 6 brush again for the littlest petals here, But if you're feeling that it's just a bit too delicate, make sure to switch down to a smaller brush size. I like the number 6 brush with a really beautiful point on it. It holds a lot of the ink in there, so I don't have to continuously get my brush inked up again, so it carries a bit more ink in it with the bigger brush size. So here I am going in with that blue green color here, and I'm just again applying a very, very light wash throughout. And the thing about using it also on the ceramic plate is it's a bit lighter than what if you used it with a regular pen, and you'll see with my second layer I'm using the same color that I used with the first wash as I'm going to put on my second wash. And you can continuously build with the same color ink over and over again for a darker and then a darker color. So here I am just washing everything off, and I've missed a little spot right here, so I just wanted to go back over and hit that. So now my hydrangea is nice and dry. That's one of the greatest things about this, is while you're working on the leaves and the other parts of the petals, other places are drying. So here I'm just making sure that I'm putting a lot of ink down on that ceramic plate and getting that ink flowing again. And that's just what I end up doing, just to make sure that that ink's going. And now we're going to go directly on, and this is the same color as that first wash. And you can see how much darker it is. And I'm using a number 4 brush here. And what I'm doing is just applying some of that lighter ink into the center of the petals, and then I'm just grabbing my watercolor brush and I'm moving around that ink in an outward direction towards the lighter color. And what I'm doing is just going to place some ink directly on the petals here. And I'm working in sections because I don't want the ink to dry. I don't want that to dry at all, because when it dries, the ink sets and it makes it really, really hard for you to move around that ink. So I'm working in sections here. And then I'm going to grab my watercolor brush and I'm just going to move that ink out. And I have probably, I would say, medium bit of water on my brush. I have, as you can't see right now, I do have a cloth on the right of me, and I am dabbing off some of that water. I don't want too much water, because then it's going to bloom too much, and then I'm going to lose those two shades, as you can see that's going on right now. So I'm just applying that brush in the darkest area where I think it is. And this is going to be my medium highlight. So I am going to go back over it later on again with a third layer, and this will be more of my darker colors. And again, I'm just pushing around that ink to the dark, to the lightest, to the center of the petals. And so you can kind of see how I'm doing that. So I'm just moving it around. Usually I'm going over the entire dark image, and then I'm pushing that ink towards the end of those petals and spreading it out. And you can see how it's just blooming outwards, and that's just really, really, really pretty. You can really see some form taking shape right now. And I'm going in the direction of form right now with each petal, as you can see too. So I'm really making sure that when I'm laying down that ink, it really is going into that direction of form of each petal. You can stop here after this layer too if you want to create a very soft, elegant image, or you can continuously go in. The more layers that you apply, again, the brighter it is going to be. Just like watercolors, more layers that you put down, the brighter it's going to be. So here we are, all done with that beautiful hydrangea. So you can leave it the way it is, or you can again go and keep playing with it and put a few more layers down. And you can see here that I feel pretty confident with the way it is. So I'm going to go over with my pinks now. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing, just making sure that I'm, hitting it where I want it to go. And then that I was just showing you my swag here, that I am dabbing off my watercolor brush a little bit, because really you don't want to hold too much water in those little tiny petals areas too, because again, you're going to have too much of a bloom and you're not going to see those contrasting colors. So here I am just laying down all the beautiful medium highlights right here, making sure I'm going in the direction of form that I want that petal to go in, those petals to go in. And again, just going over and hitting that entire thing and watching that beautiful, it's starting to spread out and it's so pretty. And you can see those two different contrasting colors. And we're going to go over it with a third color. And then that fourth layer, we can add that iridescent medium to it again with that beautiful light color for that fourth layer again. And I'll be showing you that in a little bit. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. myself right now. And again, going over onto this side too, and you can just see how it's just really starting to pop. And I am putting beautiful little brush strokes in there. You can see how I'm just kind of adding some form to it and adding some beautiful brushwork that I think that petal would go in. And again, because those petals are really quite large, I don't want that ink to set really quickly, and so I want to make sure I can spread that around and get that all nice and blended in before it really does set. And I find that the pinks are a bit harder for you to move around that ink. It really absorbs quite quickly, so we really want to make sure that doesn't happen. And again, just adding those medium highlights here, and then going to grab that watercolor brush and then do a lot of blending. Okay, so now we have that second layer all down, and it's really starting to pop. And it's all nice and dry here. I actually paused it so that it could be nice and dry. So what I'm doing here is I'm laying down that lightest color, and I'm adding a little touch of the darker color that I want to be using. And these two are going to blend together to create kind of like a medium tone, because the darkest blue is really a bit too dark, and then the lightest blue is a bit too light. So I really do want to go in and hit this again with this third layer. And you can see right here, I'm using a number 2 brush here, and it's nice because I'm creating delicate little lines here and line work here, and I'm just going over it with that medium darker color here. It's not quite the darkest that I'm going to be going in, but you can really start to see how it's just really starting to pop and bring it to life. And again, just kind of adding a little bit more of ink on my brush here and making sure my watercolor brush is wet as well. And you can really start to see that contrasting color is really starting to pop. And again here, just adding those two colors together and grabbing some water and really mixing it up. And then creating really, really delicate line work here with lines for my beautiful petals. And as you can see, it's really starting to take form right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dark blue pen that I am using, and I'm just going to go into very, very lightly going into where I think that the very, very dark areas would be. So it's a very, very thin line. I'm not doing any watercoloring here, but I'm just adding just a little bit of detail work here. And you can really see those 4 contrasting colors have just popped and bloomed, and it just looks so beautiful right now. So I'm just going over very ever so lightly, just kind of touching in where I think that those super dark areas would be. And you can really start seeing those 3 contrasting layers here. And isn't it just so beautiful? You can really start to see it pop out, and it just has gone from a regular hydrangea to a wow hydrangea, I think. So I think it just looks really, really beautiful. And we're going to do the same technique on the pink petals and also on the leaves too. So I'm just going to wash this clean, make sure it's nice and clean, and now we're going to switch over to our pink. And we're going to do the same thing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab our dark pink and then our light pink, and then we're going to mix those 2 together. Grabbing some watercolor and watercolor brush and grabbing some water and making sure, and then we're just going to add that light brush strokes here on that medium dark. So that we'll go back over this again with a dark color. So I'm just kind of filling in where I think that should go, and you can really start to see that contrasting colors on those petals, and it's really just starting to come to life now. And can you see on the other flower petals how it just really blended in between those 2 colors while I was putting on that second coat? You can really start to see that beautiful bloom and that beautiful blending that happened while it was drying. Those pins just naturally just beautifully blend on its own, and it just looks really beautiful. So here I am, I'm grabbing a number 1 brush here, and I'm just doing some really delicate line work here to make sure that you can really see some definition with those big huge petals. They're really pretty. And then I'm just going to go over very so lightly on that in the center of there. So I really needed to have a smaller brush here to create some of that delicate work here. And you can really see it's just really starting to come to life right now. And again, just making sure we hit on that little tiny petal over here in the corner. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to clean this off again, and we're going to go and do our leaves, focusing again on a medium tone with the 2 colors combined and creating a medium tone between the 2 of them. And here I am, I'm grabbing a number 2 brush. I can go a bit bigger here because I don't need to really worry about super delicate work here with line work, because I like those petals, I really wanted to have some definition of line work, so that's why I grabbed the littler brush. And so just adding where I think that tone's going to go, that beautiful darker edge. And so I've already laid down those 2 colors here with those leaves, so this is my 3rd color, and you can see it's just really starting to really pop. It's really coming to life, and it's really starting to take form. And now we're just going to wash that off again, and now we're just going to go with that beautiful blue-green and a little bit dark. And I'm using just a little tiny bit because that blue-green is so dark. I don't want to go so dark that you can't have a gradual transition of all 3 colors. So we really want to pay close attention to that. You don't want to go too dark. Once you go dark, you can't go light. So that's really a key here with watercoloring. You really want to pay attention to those colors. So here we are, we're almost done with our 3rd layer, and we're going to go back through, and I'm just going to hit this with that super dark pen of green. And I'll put down all my colors that I used in the supply list so you can work directly with me and know exactly what colors that I'm using. There are some great places where you can buy individual pens too if you can't afford the full set of these Zig pens, and I'll leave some links down there too for you so you can purchase those separately. And again, just adding that brushwork of where I think that super dark contrasting colors are laying down. And I'm going to grab that blue ink right here and just gradually, again, go over the edges where I think that the super dark line work would go. So before we go on to our final layer here, I realized that I didn't touch up where I think that those darkest tones go with this beautiful bright pink pen. So what I'm doing right now is just touching where I think that those darkest tones are going to be placed, and just going over around the corners, around the edges, and inside of each petal just very lightly, not too much ink here. But you can really see that those contrasting colors are really starting to come to life. You can see all 4 layers right now, and it's really just starting to pop and looking really beautiful. And so we're just going to go over all the darkest tones right now where I think that they are. You can see right now I'm not using my watercolor brush to blend them. Don't panic. What we're going to do next is we're going to grab our lightest tone and mix it with some iridescent medium, and then we'll blend all of the layers together, and you'll see how beautiful that is. So here we are right now. I'm ready to go, and everything's nice and dry, and I'm going to be using some Winsor Newton iridescent medium, and I'm going to grab my number 6 brush, and I'm going to put it on the side over here. The key here is not to put your zig pen in that iridescent medium. You don't want that brush, that tip of that brush, to touch that iridescent medium. Iridescent medium is like a glue, so it does adhere over time, and I have hit accidentally on my zig pen with that iridescent medium, and it was pretty tough to get that off the tip of that brush, and I will not recommend that you do that because you might ruin your brush. So we really want to make sure that it is separated. But what you're going to do is you're going to place that lightest color down on that ceramic plate, and then we're going to grab some iridescent medium and combine the two. And what you're going to do is you're going to go over the entire petal with this beautiful layer, and you can see how all 3 of them are just combining beautifully here, and you're adding some beautiful sparkle and shine to it, and it's really going to make your card pop, and it's really going to just make it into a real wow color. So here I am just wiping off that glitter, and I'm putting down a new layer of that lightest color and bringing in some more of that iridescent medium. I actually grabbed some water here because I found that it wasn't enough to load up my brush, so I really want to make sure that I can do that. So again, just going over all the petals here and really blending them all in, and you can see how everything's just really blending together beautifully. Now you don't have to use this iridescent medium if you don't want to, and I'm going to do that with those pink petals. I'm not going to use it. So I'm just making sure I load up that brush and just cover it up with that beautiful glitter, and it's really beautiful, and I just love how these cards just sparkle and shine. Okay, so we're almost done here with that hydrangea, and we're just going to rinse that brush off totally, and I'm just going to wipe this off again. So I'm wiping that off, and now we're just going to do with our pink. I'm just making sure there's no glitter in there. I don't want that on my brush. And so we're going to use that lightest pink again, and now we're just going to grab some water, and I'm dabbing off a little bit there too, as you can see. And I'm going to go over all of it with this beautiful light color, and all 3 layers, or all 4 layers, are going to be blended in perfectly, and you can see how that just kind of blends beautifully. And I'm just making sure that it's all pushing that darkest color up, and as you can see here, it just brings that lightest color up a bit more too, and it's not as super light. You could leave it the way it is, but I really felt that the contrasting colors just needed to be lifted just a little bit more. And just adding some more here, and again, loading my brush up and spreading it out, and you can see how that just really just blends in beautifully now. Okay, and so now that I'm done with my pink, again, I'm just going to wash off my brush and again wipe off. Oh, actually, I'm not going to. I'm just going to put it on the side here because there's some room for it. And again, I'm going to be using a littler brush. This is a number 4 brush. I did go smaller because these green leaves are a bit more delicate work, so I don't want to have too much water on my brush to put on there, because when you put too much water on it, then the bloom, you won't be able to see all the colors because all the water will go on, and you won't see that. So you really don't want to have too much water on your brush either. So we're just going to spread out that beautiful color, and you can see how everything just kind of lifts and gets a bit darker here, and you can really start to see all the shades of color coming in together. This is our final wash here, so we're almost done. We're just going to add, again, the green, and then we're going to add that blue-green shade. And then we're just going to go over and see if you see anything that, you just didn't kind of like or you need to hit again. We're going to go through and see, make sure that everything looks pretty good. So here I am going over with that blue-green shade here and just kind of blending it all in. And you really can see how the colors, all the shades of color have really all come together. And you can really see how this is all just blended in beautifully. So here I am, I'm just going to do some touch-up shading here. So I'm just going to grab my lightest brush and I'm just going to kind of go over where I think that the little bit more of a deeper color should go. And this should really just lift it, and this will be our medium tone. And I'm just kind of going through and making sure that it's more blended. I noticed that I didn't really like those two colors together. That dark green is really, really dark, so I just wanted to add a little bit more of that lighter blue green. And here I just realized that I missed a little spot of blending, so I want to go through, and here I'm just kind of going through again and making sure that the gradual color changes are, you can see them. And this is just normal. You just kind of play with it and kind of go over and kind of make sure that those gradual changes are really kind of jumping out. And you can keep going over and over and over again to lift up that color. And here I'm just going to go over again with my lightest color between those three colors. I just kind of felt that it just got too blended in. So I'm just kind of hitting it, making sure it looks pretty good. You don't have to reblend if you don't want to. You can leave it all the way it is, or you can go back through with your watercolor brush and just kind of blend it just a little bit. But I wanted to add that beautiful detailed line work that I saw that got blended in. So here it is, we're completely done here, and you can add some sentiments and some sequins and kind of play with it and see what you want. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's tutorial from start to finish, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'm always here to help you, and I really hope that you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Thanks so much, everyone.